All right, folks. I have called the CDC twice, and both times the automated system just hung up on me after about 50 minutes. So it looks like the only option I might possibly have to get through to him would be something devious that I don't want to do, and might even get me into a lot of trouble, which I'm not willing to do for something like this. I'd rather put a video out and hopefully people can spread it around enough that it gets to somebody within the CDC so they realize, hey, crap, we screwed up. We should have taken that call and gotten this information if I'm right. Mind you, if I'm right. So don't freak out immediately. Realize we got to dig in and find information and decide and figure out whether this is actually an issue or not that we need to be concerned with. To get that kind of information, though, we need people who actually know more about the science behind things that are involved in manufacture from start to finish of products that are related to this, as well as the transport and what things can be skipped on without it ruining the potential to be able to sell the stuff whenever it gets to the other end. That's the most important thing because obviously this is all being done by companies that are selling us stuff, so they're going to be trying to save every penny they can. So if it saves them a few cents per thousand units shipped to not use like a disinfectant substance or a light source to disinfect things before they're shipped out, say from China before they hit a Walmart distributor, and then go from there out to your local Walmart shelves for you to pick up and get infected from. Um, or it's late now that it's spread around. That means that stuff is coming from places like Italy and New York City and California and Washington and anywhere else you can think of now are all going to be in concern depending on like when the product was manufactured. Was it manufactured after the infection but before people were aware of it and stopped, uh, uh, or at least gave them the information so they could stop manufacturing without taking proper prophylactic preventative measures in order to prevent the infection of their products before they're shipped out. And if they're doing that, I mean, some places are most likely not going to because they may not. I'm not laying blame or anything like they're doing this on purpose. They may not have any clue that this stuff can actually be transmitted. So they may think that if workers are sick and they're making this stuff, they might not actually be aware that if they ship this stuff out, it could infect other people. They may assume that it's destroyed on the way and therefore it's perfectly safe for those people to have because it gets shipped all the way across the country on the back of a train car or something, in the bed of a truck. That's not necessarily the case. Unless there's something that I don't know about, it very well looks like anything that is made with bentonite clay, which foundation is made with it, eyeliner, lipstick, toothpaste. There's a mountain of things that are made with stuff, including like cat litter and whatnot, of course. But that's a dry substance, and I think that pills, like actual hard pills that are made with bentonite and cat litter, will probably be safe because it being dried and then shipped dried will end up destroying the virus or by dehydration at the very least long before it gets here. But if it's shipped in a vial or a container or something that contains fluids and the fluids aren't actively destroying the virus by pulling it apart through degreaser methods or something like that, then you may be literally putting something on your face when you get up in the morning, either to during your morning, bath ritual or when you get ready to get yourself done up to go out or whatever. Uh, then throughout the day, you will be releasing these things onto your hands and into the air for people to inhale them, which means that they're getting infected directly on the dry surface of their lungs, on the inside of the lungs, where the antibodies in your body cannot swim out to get to. They're like fish, they can't swim where there's no water. So you have to wait until fluid buildup, a pneumonia reaction, where you basically have a histamine production where you're having an allergic reaction to the virus attacking your cells, so the fluid will be on the enough coating on the surface that it's like a lake for the antibodies to swim around in and get to the viruses. And of course, from the infographics I saw, which I'll include a clip of that at some point here, it looks like that is an extremely dangerous time because your antibodies are capable of destroying your cells. I think that's what they're attempting to try to use the malaria-based medication that they're talking about now is to suppress the antibodies attempt to just mass barrage and destroy everything around them when they're being irritated by the virus. Uh, so they're not destroying your lung tissue or your, bowels or whatever before they calm down and get to the point where they can actually start doing the job of gang rushing one of these viral components, so that at least one of them will get a chance to break it down, suck the uh, brains out of the thing, the DNA, the genetic code or whatever that basically instructs cells to make viruses, and implement it in their manner instead of it being forced upon them. So that way they can actually cloak themselves with, proteins and whatnot that basically reject the virus. They can't attack them anymore, but they'll still be able to go wade through the virus and destroy them. And then, of course, your antibodies will be able to split and reproduce, and each one will be carrying the capability to basically defend themselves and even walk it unseen or swim unseen amongst the virus without being attacked to their offspring. So, but up until that point, you've got to have, you know, maybe some prophylactic effect on the your fluid systems in your body to keep the antibodies from basically destroying you, and thus, end up ruining your lungs or something if this is happening inside your lungs where you normally breathe air in and expect to be able to extract oxygen into your blood from that air breathed in. So, uh, the long and the short of it is that I did a little looking around. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't wrong about this, and make sure there was some scientific evidence to back this up. And here we have a study where they're talking about the stability of viruses in various transport media. That means they take the virus out of its environment where it's doing just fine and not being destroyed by the environment, and put it into something that hopefully will not destroy it while it's being transported at various temperatures. And you can see there are many temperatures listed here. Bentonite clay is used successfully with the adrenovirus and Coxsackie virus, A9 and B5, whatever those are, where they've got a 100% recovery rate at 21 days while they're stored in room temperature, 14 days for the other. Others don't have as much success. I don't know how this is going to affect the coronavirus. Maybe because it is able to survive in the air without liquid for a short period of time, it's more susceptible to being destroyed when packed in any of this stuff. Then again, it could make it more easily stored at room temperature for long periods of time in fluid substances like gelatin, which is what some of the stuff here is, the cell culture media and stuff like that. These are all things that basically you're getting in a gummy vitamin. And if it was made as a product of China, that means it has the longest timeline, since that's when we see that it first cropped up, that somebody who didn't know they were infected was working in a factory putting this stuff together, so that it ends up infected with a bunch of viruses that basically are in a transport medium to be delivered to you, as if you were, a research facility that were going to dissolve the gelatin and extract the viruses to do research on or something. But instead, you're going to dissolve it in your mouth and be infected by it, possibly through your intestinal tract or whatever. Uh, so, like I said, bentonite clay, gelatin, anything it's a gummy, uh, all of these things need to be looked at and see what the percentage chances of any of this stuff surviving. And this is the thing: if it's any percentage chance that some will survive by the time they get here, over 1%, since we're talking about thousands, if not millions, of viruses per, say, vitamin C gummy chewable. Well, that means that basically 1% means one out of every 100 is most likely going to be still viable, and you only need one. How many hundreds are in a million? That's the number of viruses at that point that at 1% will still be viable that you could consume. I guess the plus side is that if the units are damaged without destroying them, then maybe your antibodies will get the message and attack them, thinking they're a virus that's going to attack you, but they're not, and break it down so it becomes like a serum for a vaccination, where they can freely take the code they need to protect themselves without fear of being destroyed by the virus, and they're not being antagonized by the precursor assault from the chemicals they release to keep from being destroyed by your antibodies. So There's that too. I don't know. Like I said, this is all stuff we need to know more about. And because the CDC is not answering, so somebody can even take a few seconds to look at it and hopefully use their knowledge to determine whether this is something they need to invest more time in or it's something they can discard and not have to waste more time on so they can get back to focusing on the things they know they need to focus on. I'm going to have to basically reach out to you and hopefully you can spread it around and get people to come in that know about this, not fearmonger and try to scare people. Communicate with anybody en masse, like people say, like the scientist named that goes by Thunderfoot. I think I don't want to dox him, but yeah, his name's out there. The point is basically he might be able to basically be able to do some back of the hand calculations and some calling around to some people he knows that work in transport that know what has to be and what doesn't have to be done to determine what the threat level of this stuff is and whether it needs to actually be something we need to be concerned with, whether we should be not consuming this stuff, whether we should maybe be, getting a UVC bulb and irradiating it with ultraviolet light that destroys germs before you consume it, or, dissolving it in X amount of alcohol, like, some Clear Springs or Everclear Grain 190 proof alcohol, and then let the alcohol evaporate off of it once you have enough high enough concentration of the alcohol so that it will dehydrate the viruses and kill them. If it won't work to get rid of enough of them, then maybe we have to find something else. Maybe heating them, putting them in the microwave, whatever. Even if it destroys some of the viability and the value of the vitamins that you're taking. Usually these things are overloaded anyway, and you're getting 2, 3, 400% of what you need for a day in just a single dose. So if it destroys 50% of the vitamin and kills 100% of the virus, that's a win. But we need to know what needs to be done. And since these things are literally 120 nanometers in diameter, it appears, these tiny little water balloons of death are so small you can't see them with a microscope. You have to use, freeze drying and vacuums and stuff like that and bombard them with electrons just to be able to see the virus itself, to know if it's there, see if it still has its proteins and whatnot still intact on the surface of it when it's extracted from the substance and therefore viable and could infect things or not. I suppose you could do basically the regular tests they're using now and just put a little on a daub and then do what they do to basically get them to grow on a cell culture and see if they've got a positive result or not. But the point is, that needs to be done to see A, if there's a chance of infection from it, and B, discover the best methods of protecting ourselves if we are going to have to use these things because we don't have a source to get something alternatively from that is not infected. Obviously, if you're taking vitamins, like the vitamin C things, you can default to like just going and getting some rose hips off a rose bush and bust those open and make yourself some rose hip tea. There's got to be some YouTube videos on how to process that too. 1 cup of rose hip tea is the equivalent of like 50 oranges when it comes to the amount of vitamin C. And I'm pretty sure if you're living out in the middle of America somewhere and you got a rose bush outside, there's a good chance there aren't going to be any viruses on that. And the act of making the tea and boiling the water and all that kind of stuff is going to kill any that are in it. So it'll be safe for you to consume it. That might be another option, is to dissolve your gummy vitamins in boiling water and then drink them. I don't know. Again, though, we need some actual investigation done to make sure, so we're not spreading information that won't help anybody and give them a false sense of security. Instead, spread information that is factual so we can make sure these people get what they need, that they know will work, and they can protect themselves from this until something is done to, overcome it, because it does look like this is actually a serious problem. My thoughts: it looks like inhalation is probably the worst way to take it. So if you can't get away from getting infected, your best bet is probably to try to find something you can actually swallow or take in through, like, a mucous membrane or something that is not going to end up in your lungs, so that your body can fight it off before it infects your lungs and starts destroying your lung tissue, causing permanent lung damage. So I guess that's all. I'm going to shut this off and I'll do a little reorganizing and re-upload this everywhere I can. I'll give whatever links I can to all this stuff, and if I have to, I'll re-upload whatever files like these. I've got a whole list of these. There's, this report. There's another thing here on airborne influenza detection and collection from aerosol samplers, which one of them uses gelatin. Not the greatest rate. There are others that are better, but it still is effective to some percentage. And it only takes 1%. That's the important thing to keep in mind because we're talking about your health, not how many you have, so you can make sure you can accurately see if something's in there so you can do whatever testing and whatnot with it. No, we're trying to keep from getting infected by these little balloons so that they don't start infecting our cells, and once they get inside the cell, yell at the cell, "Stop! Coronavirus time!" and start forcing them like GameStop to mass manufacture viruses until they die, all for their profit to release every coronavirus zig. So more of it here. I mean, I've looked at a lot of different things. Some of this stuff is related to okay, this is all still transport. So there's some other stuff I've looked into too for how to uh, properly protect ourselves with surfaces that would coating surfaces with things that will destroy them long term. But again, we need testing equipment. Like if I was able to do it, to run scanning electron microscope over surfaces and whatnot and look and see how much is destroyed by say degreasers and surfactants by ripping the cells apart or extract salt laden components that basically extract the moisture out by absorbing it, causing them to dehydrate and pop. Either way, I would do that, but I don't own an electron microscope, and I don't know of anybody that's willing to donate me $2,000 or $3,000 to even pick up a used one on eBay to get busy on this. So, we need to talk to people who already have this equipment, can use it, and we'll take a minute and set it aside to actually test this so we can get the information we need in the meantime. So, all right.